Prologue of the Prophecy. Hark, ye seekers of truth. Peace be unto you. Today, I shall unveil the mysteries of the Reikai Monogatari, the tales of the spirit world, a chronicle. Vast and profound, penned through divine revelation amidst my mortal suffering. Think not of this as a mere fable of old. Nay, 'tis the very blueprint of Tatekae Tatenaoshi, the great reconstruction of our broken world from chaos into God's divine order. Art thou ready to awaken from thy slumber? For in these words lies the secret to cleansing thy soul and reshaping history itself. Listen well, for this story is not mine alone verily, it is thine own salvation. Chapter 1: The Burden of the Flesh and the Chaos of the Cosmos. Greetings, my beloved brethren. Peace be upon thy houses and thy hearts. Today, I shall unfold unto thee the mysteries of the Reikai Monogatari, the tales of the spirit world, a chronicle. I poured forth unto the world over the span of some 6 years, beginning in the 10th year of the Taisho era. Tell me, hast thou ever cast thine eyes upon these pages? Perchance, for those who tread this path for the first time, the unfamiliar tongues, the multitude of souls, and the strange names of lands may seem a steep mountain to climb. Fear not, for I shall guide thee gently by the hand, that even the simplest among ye may understand the depth of this ocean. First, let us lay the foundation stone. What manner of book is this Reikai Monogatari? When men hear spirit world, many are wont to think only of the land of the dead, or a realm invisible to the naked eye. Nay, that is but a shallow understanding. The spirit world is the great vessel that holdeth all the divine world Shinkai, the astral world Yukai, and this material world Genkai wherein we now dwell. It encompasseth the seen and the unseen alike. Consider this well, my friends. The world thou seest with thine eyes is but a single page in the vast library of the universe. Dost thou truly believe that what thou canst touch is all that exists? How small a cage that would be for thy boundless soul. Let me illuminate the architecture of the cosmos. The divine world is divided in twain, the kingdom of heaven Tengoku and the spirit kingdom Reikoku. The astral world, too, hath its division, the root land Ne no Kuni and the bottom land Soko no Kuni. The divine world is a realm of love and truth Aizen Shinshin. Those whose hearts burn with love ascend to heaven, those who seek truth find their place in the spirit kingdom. Contrariwise, the hellish realms are forged of falsehood and evil. Those consumed by deceit fall to the root land, and those bound by greed sink to the bottom land. The Reikai Monogatari is the record of events that transpired in these subtle and profound realms. It is a titanic work, spanning 81 volumes and 83 books, naming the 12 signs of the zodiac in each section. In manuscript, it amounteth to some 100,000 pages, a labor that would crush a mortal man. Why, thou askest, did I undertake such a heavy burden? It was the 18th day of October, in the 10th year of Taisho. A divine command descended upon me. Publish that which thou hast seen and heard in the spirit world. This command hearkened back to my spiritual journey in the 31st year of Meiji, when I undertook a week of severe asceticism upon Mount Takakuma. But alas, consider my wretched state at that time. From the spring of that very year, a plague had struck mine eyes, and a tormenting ache besieged my head. I was as a broken vessel. I could not even lift a brush to write a single character. Pain was my constant companion, and darkness threatened to swallow my sight. Hast thou ever felt trapped by thine own body, unable to fulfill the fire that burneth within thy spirit? I know thy suffering. I know the despair of the flesh. Yet, on a certain morning, the voice of God thundered again. I shall borrow thy mouth to proclaim the truth. Summon the scribes and let them record thy words. Thus began the dictation of this monumental tale. Nearly 40 scribes gathered to catch the torrent of words that fell from my lips. Among them was Taniguchi Masaharu, who would later found the Seicho no Ie. I lay mostly upon my futon, my body heavy with sickness, yet my spirit soaring through the ethers. Before the words would come, I would often fall into a deep slumber, snoring loudly for half an hour. When I awoke, the floodgates opened, and the story poured forth without cease. On average, I completed one book in 5 days. When the tide was high, 3 days sufficed, and at my swiftest, a single book was born in merely 2 days. How, thou wonderest, could a man write with such lightning speed? Because, my friends, I did not create this story. I did not weave it from the loom of my imagination. I merely spoke what I had witnessed with my spiritual eyes during my astral projection at Mount Takakuma. I was but a witness, describing the scenes as they unfolded before me. My physical state would shift with the narrative. When I spoke of the frigid northern lands, I would pull the quilt over my head, shivering with cold even in the heat of summer. When the scene shifted to the tropics, I would fan myself with a winter fan, sweat pouring from my brow. When the characters suffered, I too writhed in agony upon my bed. The pain was real, the journey was real. Why was it necessary to bring such a colossal story into this world, amidst such personal tribulation? Because the world was, and is, steered toward a precipice. The Reikai Monogatari is the revelation of Tatekae Tatenaoshi, the Great Reconstruction. It is the blueprint to rebuild this world, now ruled by false gods and ego, into a world governed by the true divine will. But heed me well, this is not a call for violent revolution by the sword. Nay, it is a transformation far more profound. We stand at the threshold of a new era, yet we are weighed down by the mud of the old. Do ye feel the weight? Do ye feel the confusion of this age? That is the first noble truth, the truth of suffering dukkha. We are bound by our flesh, bound by our ignorance of the true world. But take heart, for understanding the nature of this cage is the first step toward freedom. In the next chapter, I shall recount the thorns that tore at my flesh and the persecution that sought to silence this truth. Stay with me, brave souls, for the night is dark, but the dawn approaches. Chapter 2: The Path of Thorns, From Wrath to Awakening. Hark, ye weary travelers! Art thou burdened by the injustices of this world? Dost thou feel a fire of rage burning within thy breast, with nowhere to vent its heat? I know that fire well. Before I became the vessel for these divine tales, I was not a saint sitting in serene meditation. Nay, I was a man consumed by the flames of wrath and despair. Let me take thee back to the days of my youth, before the Reikai Monogatari was even a whisper in the heavens. Why, thou askest, was I led to the solitude of Mount Takakuma for my spiritual training? It began with a loss that shattered my heart. When my father departed from this mortal coil, a dam broke within my soul. The grief festered and turned into a black hatred for society. I looked upon the world and saw only corruption. I saw the weak preyed upon by the strong. My heart swelled with discontent, and like a wild beast, I lashed out. In my hometown, there were men, ruffians and gamblers, who tormented the good people. I, in my youthful arrogance, resolved to stand against them. I fought them with my fists and my fury. In the span of but half a year, I engaged in 9 great brawls. 9 times I threw myself into the fray, seeking to cleanse the world with violence. But violence begets only pain. In the 9th battle, disaster struck. My adversaries, merciless and many, struck me upon the head repeatedly with a metal pipe. Blood blinded my eyes, darkness claimed my senses. I was left broken, a crimson ruin upon the earth. Verily, I suffered a grievous wound that brought me to the very threshold of death. As I lay upon my sickbed, unable to rise, my grandmother came to my side. She looked upon my battered form with eyes full of sorrow and wisdom. "Kisaburo," she said, for that was my name then, "thou art of an age to know better. Become a true human being. Cease this life of savagery." Her words pierced deeper than any blade. A true human being, Ma Ningu. What did that mean? Was I but a beast in human skin? That very night, as I pondered her rebuke in the darkness of my room, a miracle unfolded. Suddenly, 5 spheres of light, blue, yellow, red, white, and black, manifested before me. They danced in the air and then, with a force like lightning, they plunged into my body. A power not of this world seized my limbs. I dragged myself to the nearby wall and, possessed by an unseen hand, I wrote the name of God. Tears streamed down my face as I confessed my sins, my arrogance, my wasted life. It was then that he appeared. A man dressed in Western attire, yet radiating an aura of ancient sanctity. He called himself Matsuoka Sennin, a messenger of the divine. "Follow me," he commanded. And thus, he led my spirit to Mount Takakuma. This was the spark that ignited the week-long spiritual asceticism that would change my destiny forever. But think not that the path of a messenger is paved with petals. To speak the truth in a world built on lies is to invite the wrath of the mighty. Just as I fought the ruffians in my youth, so too did I later find myself at war with the invisible giants of this age. The state, the authorities, those who feared the overturning of their power, they looked upon us with suspicion. To declare that the world must be rebuilt and renovated, Tatekae Tatenaoshi, is to challenge the very foundations of the present order. I have known the cold stone of the prison cell. I have heard the jeers of those who called me a traitor, a madman, a disturber of the peace. Why, I cried out in the silence of my confinement, why must the righteous suffer while the wicked prosper? Have ye, too, felt the sting of persecution? Hast thou been mocked for thy beliefs, or silenced for speaking what is true? Fear not, for I tell thee now this suffering is not meaningless. It is the crucible. Just as steel is forged in the hottest fire, so too must the soul be tempered by trial. My physical agony from the brawls, my spiritual anguish from the suppression, all were necessary preparations. Without the darkness, I could not have seen the light. Without the pain of the flesh, I could not have detached myself to journey into the spirit world. The Reikai Monogatari was born not in a palace of comfort, but in the midst of this storm. It is a testament written in blood and tears. And now, having walked through the valley of the shadow, I see the true cause of our suffering. It is not merely the politicians or the laws that are to blame. Nay, the root lies deeper. It lies within the human heart itself. There is a shadow that dwells within us all, a shadow I call Takahime. In the next chapter, we shall hold up a mirror to this darkness. Are ye brave enough to look at your own reflection? Gather your courage, my friends, for the journey inward is the most perilous of all. Chapter 3: The Mirror of the Soul. Behold the face of Takahime. Come closer, my friends. Let us now gaze into the abyss of the human heart. We have spoken of the world's pain, and of my own trials in bringing this story to light. But what is the root of this suffering? Whence springs the chaos that plagues our lands? Is it merely the fault of wicked rulers or unhappy fortune? Nay, look not outward, but inward. For in the Reikai Monogatari, there exists a figure who holds the key to this riddle. Her name is Takahime, Princess Hai. In this vast chronicle of 81 volumes, the protagonist is, as I have said, the brave god Susanoo. Yet, marvel at this strange truth, Susanoo appears but rarely upon the stage. He is like the wind, felt, but seldom seen. Instead, page after page, volume after volume, it is this woman, Takahime, who struts and frets. She is the mightiest of villains in the spirit world. Dost thou know a soul like hers? Listen to her nature, and tell me if it sounds familiar. She is a creature of boundless attachment. Her heart is a tempest of erratic emotions, now laughing, now weeping, now raging like a storm. She is a master of quibbling, she twisteth logic to suit her whims. Her ego, Ga, is as hard as a diamond, impenetrable and stubborn. When circumstances turn against her, she changeth her assertions as a chameleon changeth its hue. Yesterday she swore black was white, today she swears white is black, and she feels no shame. She is truly a handful, a character beyond control. Why, thou askest, would I devote so much ink to such a wretched woman? Why does she overshadow the hero himself? Herein lies the terrifying secret of the Reikai Monogatari. Takahime is not a stranger. Takahime is not a monster from a distant land. Takahime is thee, and, in truth, she is me. She is the living symbol of the darkness that dwells within every human breast. She represents two great poisons that corrode our world, where Yoshi and Taishu Reiju. Let me expound upon these terms, for they are the chains that bind thee to suffering. Where Yoshi signifieth, I am good, or self-righteousness. It is the mindset that saith, as long as I prosper, let the world burn. As long as I am comfortable, what care I for my neighbor? It is the ego that placed itself at the center of the universe. And Taishu Reiju signifieth, body is master, spirit is servant. This is the state of the modern man. The soul, the conscience, the divine spark, these should be the masters of our vessel. But look around thee. Who holds the whip in this world? Is it not the desire for gold? The lust for flesh? The hunger for power? When the physical desires dictate, and the spirit follows in silence like a slave, that is Taishu Reiju. We live in a world that worships the material. We polish the outside of the cup while the inside is full of filth. We seek to satisfy the body which must one day perish, yet we starve the spirit which lives forever. This inverted order is the true cause of all agony. Takahime shows us this ugly truth without mercy. Through her antics, through her selfishness, we are forced to confront our own reflection. When thou readest of her greed, dost thou not feel a pang of recognition? When thou readest of her erratic anger, dost thou not remember thine own outbursts? We all possess the face of Takahime. We are all guilty of thinking, I am right, and the world is wrong. But hark, do not despair, for the Reikai Monogatari is not a book of condemnation. It is a book of salvation. The most crucial lesson of Takahime is not her wickedness, but her destiny. Does Susanoo slay her? Does God strike her down with a bolt of lightning? Nay, even Takahime, with all her sins, eventually undergoes, kaishin, a change of heart. She is reformed. She opens her eyes to the divine truth. This is the essence of Kotamake Awasu, the act of pacifying and harmonizing through words and spirit. The Great Reconstruction does not mean destroying the ego, it means purifying it. It means turning the body master back into the spirit master. Even the strongest ego, when directed toward the good of all, becomes a powerful engine for God's work. Think on this, my friends. Do not hate the Takahime within thee. Do not try to kill thy desires with hatred. Acknowledge her, understand her, and then, gently, firmly, lead her toward the light. But alas, the internal ego is not the only enemy. There are forces outside, invisible entities that prey upon this very weakness. In the next chapter, I shall reveal the monsters of the spirit world, the dragons and foxes that manipulate the rulers of this earth. Art thou prepared to see the strings that pull the puppets of history? Steel thy hearts, for the truth is stranger than any fiction. Chapter 4: The Beasts that Prowl the Ether and the Map of God. Hark, ye brave souls who have dared to look within. We have spoken of the enemy inside, the selfish Takahime that dwells in every heart. But alas, the peril ends not at the borders of thine own skin. Cast thine eyes upon the world around thee. Dost thou see the madness that grips the nations? Dost thou wonder why the world is rent asunder by strife, why leaders falter, and why wisdom seems to flee from the counsels of men? It is because the air itself is thick with invisible beasts. The spirit world is not merely a place of rest, it is a battlefield, and its monsters cast long shadows upon the earth. In the Reikai Monogatari, 3 great evils, 3 Jirei, rise up to plague the cosmos. Know them, for they are the architects of your suffering. First, there is the Yamada no Orochi, the great 8-headed serpent. This is no mere snake of the fields. It is the spirit of division and factionalism. Look to your capital cities, look to your parliaments. Dost thou see how politicians and leaders turn upon one another? How society is split into warring camps, brother against brother, party against party. This is the work of the Orochi. It possesseth the hearts of those in power, whispering lies of separation, urging them to tear the fabric of society for the sake of their own nests. Whenever thou seest a nation divided against itself, know that the serpent is coiling around its heart. Second, beware the Kinmo Kyubi no Kitsune, the golden nine-tailed fox. This spirit is the weaver of illusions and the master of lust. It preys largely upon the fairer sex, yet its ultimate victim is the spirit of man. It useth, Shikyo, the passions of the flesh, to blind the wise and bring the mighty to their knees. How many kings in history have lost their crowns for a moment of pleasure? How many homes have been wrecked by the allure of vanity? This fox dances in the shadows of desire, turning love into obsession and beauty into a snare. Third, there stands the Hachiman Rapi no Jaki, the demon of 8 faces and 6 arms. This fiend is the breaker of order. It hates that which is established. It seeks to smash the existing organizations, not to build something better, but solely to crown itself as the master of the ruins. It is the spirit of anarchy and selfish ambition that says, I shall rule, even if I rule over a graveyard. Dost thou recognize these monsters? They are not fairy tales. They are the spiritual forces driving the headlines of thy daily newspapers. But stay, for there is a deeper mystery I must unveil. Why do these spiritual events ripple so violently into your world? It is because of the great law of So-o, the law of correspondence. The spirit world and the material world are 2 sides of the same coin. What happens above must surely happen below. However, heed this difference in the spirit world. Time and space are not as they are here. Past, present, and future exist in a single, eternal moment. Therefore, what I saw in my visions may happen tomorrow, or it may have happened yesterday, or it is happening now. And marvel at this, the greatest secret of geography. Japan is the Hinagata, the prototype of the world. God has fashioned this island nation as a miniature of the entire earth. Dost thou doubt me? Look at the map with the eyes of the spirit. The great continent of North America corresponds to Hokkaido. The vast expanse of Eurasia corresponds to Honshu. Africa, the land of heat and mystery, finds its mirror in Kyushu. Australia, the southern land, is reflected in Shikoku. And South America corresponds to Taiwan. This is not a mere accident of shapes. It is a geological and spiritual bond. Consider the Earth's treasures. South Africa is known as the world's greatest source of gold, is it not? Now look to the corresponding land in Japan, Kagoshima. There lies the Hishikari mine, the richest vein of gold in all of Japan. Is this chance? Nay, it is the signature of the Creator. The struggles of the world are enacted first in Japan, and the prayers offered in Japan ripple out to save the world. We are bound together by invisible threads. Thus, we are trapped, besieged by inner demons like Takahime, and hunted by outer beasts like the Orochi. The world mirrors the chaos of the spirit, and the spirit reflects the sins of the world. Is there no escape from this cycle of suffering? Must we be crushed between the upper and nether millstones? Nay, my friends, for it was in the depths of this despair, when my body was broken and my pen could not move, that the miracle occurred. The channel was opened, the divine descended into the vessel of clay. In the next chapter, I shall tell thee of the divine marriage, how the voice of God overtook the snoring man, and how the solution began to flow into this broken world. Canst thou hear the whisper of the turning tide? Prepare thyself, for the light is about to break the seal. Chapter 5: The Divine Marriage, God's Breath, Mortal Clay. Behold now, my beloved friends, the turning of the tide. We have traversed the valley of shadow, we have seen the beasts that prowl the earth and the demons that lurk within the heart. The weight of the world is heavy, is it not? Perhaps thou feelest that thou must carry this burden alone, that thou must solve the riddles of thy life with the strength of thine own small arm. Peace, I say unto thee, peace, for the greatest secret I have learned is this: true power comes not from grasping, but from letting go. Let me take thee back to that tatami room where the Reikai Monogatari was born. Picture the scene. There lay I, a man broken by illness, my eyes dim, my head throbbing with the pain of 1,000 drums. Around me sat the scribes, nearly 40 souls in all, brushes poised, inkstones ready. Among them sat Taniguchi Masaharu, a seeker who would later forge his own path of truth. They waited for wisdom, they waited for the prophecy. And what did they see? Did they see a sage in deep contemplation, furrowing his brow, wrestling with complex philosophies? Nay, they saw a man asleep. Verily, before the torrent of words would begin, I would often fall into a deep slumber. For 30 minutes or more, the room would resonate not with holy chants, but with the sound of my thunderous snoring. Canst thou imagine their bewilderment? Is this the Savior? They must have thought. Is this the mouthpiece of God? But this sleep was no ordinary rest. It was the necessary death of the ego. In order for the vessel to be filled with the divine wine, the old wine of the self had to be poured out completely. My conscious mind, with all its worries, its plans, its Takahime-like attachments, had to be silenced. Only when I was asleep could he awake within me. And when my eyes opened, it was as if a dam had burst. The words did not come from my brain, they rose from the pit of my belly, flowing through my throat like a river of fire. I did not think, I did not construct, I did not compose. The story existed already, complete and perfect in the spirit world. I was but the hollow reed through which the wind of heaven blew. This is why I could produce volumes at a speed that defied human reason. One book in 3 days, nay, sometimes 2. Had I paused to think, how shall I phrase this, or, is this sentence beautiful, the flow would have ceased. The interference of the human intellect is but a blockage in the divine artery. This state is known as Shinjin Goitsu, the unity of God and man. It is not that I became God, nor that God became me, but that our wills merged into a single current. And oh, the reality of that current. As I spoke, I was no longer upon my futon in Ayabe. I was walking the frozen tundras of the north, I was sweltering in the jungles of the south. My body, though lying still, reacted to the spiritual climate. In the height of summer, I would shiver and pull the quilts over my head if the scene was icy. In the dead of winter, I would sweat and call for a fan if the story traversed the tropics. When the characters wept, tears soaked my pillow. When they were struck, my own flesh recoiled in pain. This was no fiction. This was living the truth. The barrier between the observer and the observed had vanished. Now, I ask thee, my weary viewer, art thou trying to write the story of thy life with a clenched fist? Art thou struggling to control every outcome, to force the world to bend to thy will? Look at where that has brought thee. To anxiety, to exhaustion, to the very suffering we spoke of. Learn the lesson of the snoring sage. There is a wisdom greater than thine own intellect waiting to speak through thee. There is a power greater than thine own muscles waiting to move thee. But it cannot enter while the house is cluttered with the noise of thy worry. Thou must learn to surrender. Thou must learn to say, not my will, but thine be done. This is not weakness, it is the ultimate strength. It is the secret of Kanagara, following the flow of God's will. When I surrendered my broken body to that flow, the Reikai Monogatari was born. And what was the message that poured forth from that divine spring? It was not merely a tale of past battles. It was a blueprint for the future. It was the announcement of the great healing that is to come. The suffering, the demons, the chaos, they are not the end. They are but the labor pains of a new world. In the next chapter, I shall unveil the vision of that new world, the Miroku no Yo. It is a world where the tears are wiped away, and the broken are made whole. The darkness is fading, my friends. Canst thou see the first rays of the morning sun? Open thy hearts, for the dawn is upon us. Chapter 6: The Gospel of Reconstruction, the Golden Age of Miroku. Lift up thine eyes, O ye children of the dawn. We have journeyed through the valley of the shadow of death. We have seen the rot that eats at the heart of the world, and the beasts that prowl in the twilight of the soul. But I did not lead thee here to leave thee in despair. Nay, the Reikai Monogatari was not written to prophesy doom, but to sing the anthem of a glorious morning. The night is darkest just before the sun breaks the horizon. And now, I declare unto thee the third noble truth, the truth of cessation Naroda. The suffering can end. The chaos shall be ordered. Behold the vision of Tatekae Tatenaoshi, the great reconstruction and renovation of the cosmos. What meaneth this thunderous phrase, Tatekae Tatenaoshi? Many tremble at these words, thinking they herald the apocalypse, the fire and brimstone of an angry god. They fear it means the destruction of their cities and the crumbling of their towers. But fear not, Tatekae is indeed the tearing down of the old, rotting structures that can no longer shelter the spirit. But Tatenaoshi is the rebuilding of a palace more magnificent than before. The purpose of the Reikai Monogatari is to show the path from this present world, ruled by the evil gods of body first, spirit last, to a new world governed by the divine law of spirit first, body last. The architect of this new age is none other than the god Susanoo. In the ancient myths, he was cast out as a violent storm god, a troublemaker. But in the truth of the spirit world, Susanoo is the savior. He is the great redeemer who takes upon himself the sins of the world. He wanders through the heavens and the earth, not to destroy, but to cleanse. His mission is to prepare the throne for the return of Kuni Tokotachi no Kami, the primal god who was banished to the northeast. The god of strict justice and boundless love. But hark, and mark this well, for it is the cornerstone of our philosophy. This revolution is not a revolution of blood. It is not achieved by the sword, nor by the gun, nor by the guillotine. The violent revolutions of men merely replace one tyrant with another. The revolution of God is achieved through Kodo Mukawasu, the pacifying power of the word. Look at the wisdom of the Reikai Monogatari. How does it treat the villains? How does it deal with the terrifying Yamada no Orochi or the selfish Takahime? Does God command us to slaughter them and cast their souls into the eternal fire? Nay, 1,000 times, nay. The spirit of the new age is the spirit of absolute redemption. Consider the humble farmer. Does he despise the filth of the latrine? Does he curse the excrement of the body as useless waste? Nay, he gathers it with care. He casts it upon his fields. And behold, that which was foul and rejected becomes the nourishment for the soil. It feeds the roots of the radish and the wheat. It is transformed into life-giving food. So it is with the evils of this world. The greed, the ambition, the Takahime nature, within us, they are like the manure. If left to fester in the house, they bring disease and stench. But if moved to the proper place, if purified and directed by the Spirit, they become the fuel for great works. The energy that once sought to conquer the world for self-gain is transformed into the energy to serve the world for God's glory. Nothing in God's universe is wasted. No soul is beyond repair. This is the promise of the Miroku no Yo, the world of Maitreya. Canst thou imagine such a world? Close thine eyes for a moment and dream with me. It is a world where the borders between nations dissolve, not by conquest, but by brotherhood. It is a world where the sword is beaten into the plowshare, and the spear into the pruning hook. There, the great peace reigns supreme. No longer shall man prey upon man. No longer shall the strong devour the weak. The economy of where Yoshi, I am good, you are nothing shall be replaced by the economy of mutual aid. The politics of division shall be replaced by the governance of harmony. In this world, religion is not a wall that separates, but a bridge that unites. Science and faith shall walk hand in hand like wedded lovers. And do not think this is but a fairy tale for children. It is the inevitable destiny of the earth. The Reikai Monogatari is the script for this drama, and the curtain has already risen. But why, thou askest, do we still see such pain around us? Why do the wars rage and the storms blow? It is because the cleansing has begun. When a wound heals, the pus must be drawn out. When a house is renovated, the dust must fly. The confusion thou seest in the headlines, the scandals, the collapses, the exposure of corruption, this is the Tatekae. It is the light shining into the dark corners, forcing the shadows to flee. Rejoice when thou seest these things, for they are the signs that the old world is passing away. My friends, the Miroku no Yo is not a distant paradise in the clouds. It is not a place thou goest to after thou diest. It is a reality to be built here, upon this green earth. And who are the builders? Look in the mirror. It is thee. Thou art the hands and feet of Susanoo. Thou art the vessel of Kuni Toko Tachi. The Great Reconstruction does not happen to thee, it happens through thee. But how? How can a simple person, living a simple life, participate in this cosmic drama? How canst thou wield the power of the word to turn enemies into friends? How canst thou transform the manure of thy daily struggles into the gold of spiritual growth? We have seen the vision. Now we must walk the path. The time for theory is over. The time for practice has come. In the chapters that follow, I shall hand thee the tools of the Sendenshi, the missionaries of truth. I shall teach thee the art of non-resistance. I shall teach thee the magic of language. Art thou ready to lay down the weapons of anger and pick up the shield of love? The path Maga awaits. Let us step forward together into the glorious work of the fourth noble truth. Chapter 7: The Swordless Victory, the Path of Kotamake Awasu. Welcome, pilgrims of the way. We have ascended the mountain of theory, now we must descend into the valley of practice. For what profit hath a man if he knoweth all the mysteries of the universe, yet cannot live in peace with his neighbor? Thou askest, how shall we build this Miroku no Yo in a world bristling with bayonets and bitter words? Must we be trampled by the wicked while we pray? Nay, my friends, today, I hand thee the weapon that breaks swords and melts hearts. This is the fourth noble truth, the truth of the path Maga, the art of Kotamake Awasu. Kotamake Awasu. 'Tis an ancient phrase from the dawn of Japan, meaning, to pacify and harmonize through the power of the word. Look around thee at the sad state of this earth. Corporal punishment in schools, violence in the streets, wars between nations. Why doth man raise his fist? Because he knoweth no other way. He is bankrupt of vocabulary, he is destitute of spirit. When the tongue fails, the hand strikes. But violence is a cycle that never ends. Blood calls for blood, and vengeance for vengeance. Is there no other way? Verily, there is, but it requires a courage far greater than the courage to kill. It requires the courage to love thine enemy. In the Reikai Monogatari, the heroes, called Sendenshi missionaries, face terrible foes. Bandits, demons, and hostile armies descend upon them. But do the Sendenshi draw swords? Do they fire rifles? Nay, they wield a technique known as Reibaku, the spiritual bind. When a murderous foe approaches, the missionary projects a spirit of such intense peace and authority that the enemy is frozen where he stands. Like a man bound by invisible chains, or one gripped by sleep paralysis, the attacker cannot lift a finger. This is the ultimate self-defense. It harms not the enemy's body, but it halts his wickedness. It gives him a moment of pause, a chance for his soul to awaken from the red fog of rage. And there are times in the story when the defense is even more radical. Imagine a fortress besieged by a barbarian horde. What would a worldly general do? Bar the gates, boil the oil, sharpen the arrows. But in the spirit world, the wise leader commands, open the gates wide. He invites the invaders inside. He prepares a banquet. He pours them the finest sake and serves them the choicest foods. He bows to them with genuine respect. The enemy is bewildered. We came to fight, they think, but there is no one to fight against. Their fighting spirit withers like a plant without water. Overcome by such unexpected kindness, they drop their weapons and weep. They are not defeated by force, they are conquered by virtue. This is Kotamake Awasu. Awe, Thou sayest, that is a pretty story for a book, Onisaburo. But in the real world, such a man would be killed. Dost thou think so? Then let me tell thee of the days when I walked through the valley of the shadow of death in the flesh. It was the 13th year of Taisho 1924. I journeyed to the vast plains of Mongolia, seeking to establish a spiritual utopia, a kingdom of peace. But the warlords of this world do not look kindly upon dreamers. We were pursued by the army of Zhang Zuolin. At a place called Paitala, we were surrounded. There were but a handful of us against a regiment of soldiers. They dragged us out to the execution ground. The rifles were loaded. The bayonets were fixed. The order was given to fire. At that moment, what did I do? Did I beg for my life? Did I curse them? Did I try to wrestle the gun from their hands? Nay, I stood tall. I looked at the vast Mongolian sky, so blue and endless. And I composed a poem in my heart. Mi wa tato, moko no nobi ni, sarasa tomo, yamato danji no, na wa otasaji. Though my body may rot in the fields of Mongolia, I shall not stain the honor of a son of Japan. I accepted death. I surrendered my fate entirely to God. I felt no hatred for the soldiers who were about to kill me. I looked upon them as actors playing their role in a divine drama. I became a great fool in the eyes of the world. And in that moment of total surrender, a miracle occurred. The execution was halted. A Japanese consular official arrived at the very last second, like an angel sent from heaven. We were spared. Why was I saved? Because I did not fight the current. I practiced kotamake awasu with the universe itself. By accepting the situation with absolute peace, the murderous intent of the atmosphere was neutralized. This is the secret: to lose is to win. To yield is to overcome. The willow tree survives the storm because it bends, the oak tree breaks because it resists. Now, how shalt thou apply this in thy daily life? Thou mayest not face a firing squad in Mongolia, but thou facest firing squads of a different kind. An angry boss who screams at thee, a spouse who showers thee with cold words, a neighbor who spreads lies. The natural instinct is to fight back, to defend thyself, to scream louder. But I say unto thee, try the way of the Sendenshi. When they come at thee with fire, answer them with water. When they come with a sword of insults, answer with a shield of silence or a flower of kindness. Do not seek to win the argument. Seek to win the heart. Pray for the God dwelling within that angry person. Say in thy heart, God bless this soul. It may not work instantly. Thou mayest fail. Even the missionaries in my story sometimes fail. They get beaten. They get chased. But that is the polishing of the soul. Every failure is a lesson in patience. Every insult swallowed is a jewel added to thy crown. Kotamake awasu is not for the weak. It is the path of the spiritual warrior. It requires a strength of character that is harder than steel. Are ye ready to lay down the weapons of the ego? Are ye ready to conquer the world with a smile? In the next chapter, I shall teach thee the magic that makes this possible, the power of language itself. Nostradamus, the art of respeaking the world. Prepare thine ears, for we are about to learn the grammar of creation. Chapter 8: The Alchemy of the Tongue, the Art of Nostradamus. Peace be upon thy lips, O masters of destiny. We have spoken of the heart that yields like water. Now we must speak of the tongue that cuts like fire and builds like stone. For if the heart is the compass of the soul, the tongue is the rudder of the ship. Though it be a small member, it boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. Today, I shall teach thee the fifth noble truth of our story, the second step upon the path, the sacred art of Nostradamus. Nori means to declare or to announce. Naoshi means to cure, to fix, or to return to the original state. Therefore, Nostradamus is the art of redeclaring or respeaking reality. Heed well the basic chant Kihon Sinden of our faith. Tada nanagoto mo hito no yowa. Naohi ni manaos. Kakinos. Mi no ayamachi wa noranaeus. Which translates thus: In all things of this human world, look again and listen again with the spirit of rectitude Naohi, and respeak the errors of the self. What meaneth this strange command? My friends, ye are prone to think that words are merely labels we stick upon things that already exist. Thou seest a stone, and thou sayest, stone. Thou feelest pain, and thou sayest, pain. Thou believest the world comes first, and the word comes second. Verily, I say unto thee, thou art upside down. In the beginning was the Word. The Word comes first, and the world follows. Reality is not a fixed, solid rock. It is a flowing stream of energy. It is thy words that freeze this stream into the shape of thy life. When a misfortune befalls thee, what dost thou say? Alas, I am ruined. This is terrible. I am sick unto death. By speaking thus, thou art signing a contract with the devil of despair. Thou art fixing that fluid event into a solid reality of misery. This is the error of the body that must be respoken. Nostradamus is the power to take a dark event and, by the alchemy of language, transform it into a blessing. Think not that this is mere lying or pretending. Nay, it is the act of finding the hidden truth that lies behind the mask of appearance. Let me share with thee a moment of supreme testing from my own life. In the 10th year of Showa 1935, the storm of the second Umoto incident broke upon us. The government, fearful of our growing influence, sought to wipe us from the face of the earth. They arrested me, they dragged away my wife and my disciples, and then, they did the unthinkable. They took dynamite to our holy sanctuaries in Ayabe and Kamioka, the magnificent Temple of the Moon Mirror, which we had built with the sweat and tears of thousands, was blown to dust. The Palace of the Shining Star was reduced to rubble. They burned our books. They smashed our art. It was a desecration such as the world had rarely seen. How did I react when I heard this news in my prison cell? Did I curse the government? Did I wail and gnash my teeth? Did I cry out, my life's work is destroyed. I am a failure. Had I spoken thus, I would have died in that cell, a broken old man. But nay, I practiced Nostradamus. I looked upon the destruction with the eyes of Naohi, the straight spirit, and I declared, this is not destruction, this is a great cleaning. I said, God has swept away the dust. The buildings had become too small for the spirit. Now we are free to build the temple of the heart, which no dynamite can touch. And I went further. I declared, by destroying the physical form of Umoto, God has saved us from the coming war. And verily, it was so. Because our organization was dismantled, our youth were not drafted en masse to die in the Pacific War as a religious unit. Because we were in prison, we were kept safe from the air raids that turned Tokyo to ash. What looked like the greatest tragedy was, in truth, the greatest protection. My words of gratitude defined the reality. I did not say, I am a prisoner. I said, I am a guest of the emperor, given a long vacation to meditate. Dost thou see the power? The event is neutral. The interpretation is the creation. Naohi ni manaos. Look again with the spirit of rectitude. When thou lostest thy job, do not say, I am unemployed. Say, I have been given the gift of freedom to find my true calling. When thou fallest ill, do not say, I am suffering. Say, my body is purging the toxins of the past. I am in the process of renewal. This is not deceiving thyself. It is aligning thy small will with the great will of the universe. It is trusting that Kanagara, the flow of God, is always leading thee to good, even when it looks like evil. But beware, for this sword cuts both ways. If thou speakest words of filth, thou createst a filthy world. If thou gossipest, complainest, and slanderest, thou art building a prison of mud around thine own soul. Every time thou sayest, I am tired, I am poor, I am unlucky, thou art casting a black spell upon thyself. Thou art the magician who hexes his own house. Stop it, I command thee. Stop it this instant. Mi no ayamachi wa noreneas. Respeak the errors of the self. Catch the negative word before it leaves the gate of thy teeth. swallow it down, and let it die in silence. Then, speak the word of light. My friends, the Reikai Monogatari is written in the alphabet of spirit. But the story of thy life is written in the alphabet of thy daily speech. What story art thou writing today? Is it a tragedy of complaints? Or is it an epic of gratitude and courage? The pen is in thy tongue. Write well, write beautifully, for beautiful words create a beautiful reality. This is the law of Kotodama, the spirit of words. Now, having purified our actions with Kotamake and our speech with Nostradamus, we must turn to the final sphere. We must look at how we live, how we eat, and how we dream. For the path to heaven is paved with the stones of daily habits. In the next chapter, I shall reveal the secret of Bankyo Dokkan, the unity of all religions, and the art of living as a masterpiece. Art thou ready to turn thy mundane life into a work of art? Then follow me, for the canvas awaits. Chapter 9: The Universal Canvas, Art, Faith, and the Daily Liturgy. Welcome, my fellow artisans of the soul. We have learned how to pacify the enemy without, and how to rewrite the reality within. But tell me, how dost thou spend the long hours of thy day? Dost thou think that religion is a coat to be worn only on the Sabbath? Dost thou believe that God dwells only in the dark corners of the temple or the shrine? Nay, I say unto thee, if thy faith does not taste like the food thou eatest, if it does not shine like the clothes thou wearest, then it is a dead thing. Today, I shall unveil the sixth noble truth of our journey, the truth of Bankyo Dokkan, the common root of all religions and the art of living. Look abroad at the nations of the earth. See how they quarrel over the names of God. The Christian cries, "My God is love." The Buddhist whispers, "My path is compassion." The Muslim declares, "There is no God but Allah." And in their zeal, they slaughter one another, claiming that their map is the only map. Is this not the height of folly? Imagine a great mountain rising into the clouds. There are many paths to the summit. One path winds from the east, another climbs from the west. Some are steep, some are gentle. The climber on the eastern face sees the sun rise, the climber on the western face sees the sun set. They describe the mountain differently, but when they reach the cloud-capped peak and gaze at the moon, is it not the same moon? This is Bankyo Dokkan. Ben means 10,000, Kyo means teachings, Do means same, Kan means root. 10,000 teachings, one root. The God of Israel, the Buddha of India, the Kami of Japan, they are but different masks worn by the same Great Spirit to speak to different children in different times. I did not merely preach this, I lived it. I sought to unite the world not just in spirit, but in speech. Hast thou heard of Esperanto? It is a language created not by the history of conquest, but by the hope of peace. I embraced this tongue with all my heart. Why? Because the Tower of Babel must be undone. As long as we speak in tongues that our brothers cannot understand, suspicion breeds like weeds. I promoted Esperanto to weave a new tapestry of understanding across the globe. I challenged the world. Let us drop the pride of our native tongues and meet on the neutral ground of brotherhood. Art thou willing to learn the language of thy neighbor? Or art thou content to remain an island? But unity is not enough if life is gray and joyless. Here lies the greatest secret of my later years. Art is the mother of religion. Many think that religion must be somber, strict, and devoid of color. They think a saint must wear rags and sit in ashes. That is the thinking of the grave. God is the great artist. Look at the sunset. Look at the peacock's feather. Look at the cherry blossom. Did God create these in a fit of depression? Nay, creation is an act of joy. Therefore, thy life must be a masterpiece. After I was released from the prison of the second Umoto incident, I did not retreat into bitterness. I threw myself into the fire of creation. I became a potter. In the span of but 1 year, my hands molded 3,000 tea bowls. 3,000. I did not labor with a furrowed brow. I sang as I worked. I recited prayers and poems into the wet clay. I splashed them with colors that defied the traditions of the tea ceremony. brilliant reds, deep purples, flashing golds. These are known today as yauen, the shining bowls. They are not perfect in shape, some are crooked, some are rough. But they are alive with the pulse of the spirit. I taught the world that art is not a luxury for the rich, it is the breath of the soul. To arrange a flower, to sweep a garden, to write a poem, these are acts of worship equal to any scripture. And this artistry must extend to the very temple of thy body. How dost thou treat the vessel that God has lent thee? Let us speak of shoku, food. The Reikai Monogatari counsels us to avoid the heavy vibrations of red meat. Why make of thy stomach a graveyard for beasts? When thou eatest the pure life of plants, thy spirit becomes light and clear. Thou becomest sensitive to the whispers of the divine. This is not a rigid law of, thou shalt not, but a compassionate advice for those who wish to fly. And what of dreams? Dost thou dismiss thy dreams as mere phantoms of the night? Foolishness. Dreams are letters sent from the spirit world. When the heavy coat of the body is asleep, the soul wanders in the astral realms. Pay attention to these nightly journeys. Keep a journal. Decode the symbols. For often, the solution to thy daily trouble is whispered to thee while thou sleepest. And finally, consider misogi, the rite of purification. In the ancient days, men stood under waterfalls to cleanse their sins. But thou needest not freeze in a winter river. To keep thy body clean, to wash away the sweat and grime of the day with gratitude, this is modern misogi. As thou washest thy skin, visualize the dark thoughts of the day flowing down the drain. Body is the temple, keep it swept and garnished. My friends, do ye see now? The path to the Miroku world is not walked only in the clouds of theology. It is walked in the kitchen. It is walked in the studio. It is walked in the bath. Thy life is a lump of clay. Art thou leaving it shapeless and dry? Or art thou placing it upon the wheel of devotion? Turn the wheel. Mold thy days with the hands of love. Glaze them with the colors of joy. Fire them in the kiln of passion. Be the artist of thine own destiny. We are nearing the end of our journey, thou and I. The clay is shaped, the words are spoken. But what lies beyond the final curtain? What happens when this clay vessel breaks and returns to the dust? Is it the end, or is it the beginning of a grander adventure? In the final chapter, I shall take thee to the edge of the great river. I shall speak of death, not as a monster, but as a friend. And I shall hand the torch to thee. Prepare thy spirits, for the final revelation awaits. Chapter 10: The Eternal Voyage, Beyond the Veil of Flesh. Peace be with you, brave pilgrims of the Spirit. We have walked a long road together, thou and I. We have traversed the valleys of suffering, climbed the peaks of divine revelation, and learned the arts of living with grace. Now, we stand at the edge of the great ocean that men call death. Do thy knees tremble? Does thy heart flutter with fear at the thought of the end? Cast aside thy fear, for I tell thee now, with the certainty of one who has journeyed there and returned. There is no death. What men call death is but the shedding of a worn-out coat. It is the breaking of the chrysalis so that the butterfly may take wing. Let me reveal unto thee the final secret of thy being, the architecture of the soul itself. Know thyself, for thou art not merely blood and bone. Thy soul is a divine structure known as Ichirei Shakan, one spirit, four souls. At the center burns the Naohi, the straight spirit. This is the spark of God within thee, the divine compass that always points to truth. Surrounding it are four distinct energies. The Era Matama, the rough soul that gives courage and force. The Niji Matama, the gentle soul that fosters peace and friendship. The Sake Matama, the happy soul that brings love and harvest. The Kushi Matama, the wondrous soul that grants wisdom and intuition. But listen closely, for here lies the battlefield of thy daily life. Thou art never alone. Attending every human soul are three guardian spirits. First, the Hun Shugo Jin main guardian. This is the true master of thy destiny. Then, there is the Sei Shugo Jin righteous guardian, who pulls thee toward the light, urging thee to acts of kindness and sacrifice. But alas, There is also the Fuku Shugo Jin Vice Guardian, who tempts thee toward the dark, whispering thoughts of greed and, where Yoshi, selfishness. This Vice Guardian is the source of thy bad habits and carnal desires. Now, marvel at the wisdom of the spirit world. Do we call this Vice Guardian a demon? Do we call him Satan and seek to banish him? Nay, in our teaching, we sometimes call him Sensei, teacher. Why call an evil spirit teacher? Because, my friends, he is the resistance that makes thy spiritual muscles strong. Without the temptation to be selfish, how couldst thou choose to be selfless? Without the darkness, how couldst thou know the brilliance of the light? We honor him with a polite title to Kotamake, him, to soothe his rebellious nature with respect and eventually lead him to reform. Remember, even the devil inside thee seeks salvation. Thy life on this earth is not a punishment. It is a yoseiho, a training ground for angels. Thou art here to polish the rough stone of the soul until it shines like the yaon bowl. And when the training is done, when the bell rings and school is out, that is what thou callest death. It is graduation day. Why shouldst thou weep at graduation? The ancestors who have gone before are not lost in a void. They are standing on the balcony of the spirit world, cheering for thee. They watch thy struggles, they guide thy steps. When thou offerest prayers to them, it is not a one-way street. It is a telephone line of love. Live thy life so that when thou meetest them again, thou canst look them in the eye and say, I did my best. I kept the faith. I, Onisaburo, have left this physical world long ago. My body has returned to the dust of Kamioka. But am I dead? Am I silent? Nay, I am speaking to thee right now. My voice resonates through the ether, carried by the winds of technology to reach thine ears. The Reikai Monogatari consists of 81 volumes. But do not think for a moment that the story ends on the last page. The story is unfinished. It was left unfinished on purpose. Why? Because thou art the author of Volume 82, and Volume 83, and Volume 100. Every time thou choosest forgiveness over revenge, thou art writing a new paragraph. Every time thou transformest a curse into a blessing with Norinaoshi, thou art turning a new page. The Miroku no Yo, the kingdom of heaven on earth, is not a gift that will be dropped from the sky by a bearded god on a cloud. It is a mosaic that must be built, stone by stone, by human hands inspired by divine love. It begins in thy heart. It spreads to thy family. It flows into thy town. And eventually, it shall cover the earth as the waters cover the sea. Look at the world today. The storms are raging, yes. The Yamada no Orochi of division hisses in the halls of power. The Takahime of greed screams in the marketplace. But do not be dismayed. These are the birth pains. The old skin is shedding. God is shaking the world to wake it up. Thou art alive in this time for a reason. Thou wert chosen to be a sendenshi of the new age. Thou hast the tools now. Thou hast the map. Thou hast the power of the word. So, I ask thee one last time, will thou sleepwalk through the rest of thy days, a slave to the body and the ego? Or will thou wake up? Will thou rise and take thy place in the great procession of souls? The pen is in thy hand. The ink is fresh. The blank page stretches out before thee, white and waiting. Write a good story, my friend. Write a story that will make the angels weep for joy. Write a story of a life lived with courage, with art, and with boundless love. The journey never ends. The road goes on, winding through the stars, deeper into the heart of God. I shall be waiting for thee at the next turn. Until then, walk with your head high. Trust in the Kanagara. Let the God within thee breathe. Go forth, and make of this world a masterpiece. Conclusion: the unsealed scroll. Thus, the scroll remains unsealed. The Reikai Monogatari is no static tome of the past, it is a living breath that floweth through thee even now. The Miroku no Yo, that promised land of universal peace, is not a distant dream, but a reality born this very moment within thy heart. Step forth into this eternal journey. Become the authors of the new age, for the pen is now in thy hand. May the light of the divine guide thy path, and may God's love dwell with thee always. Fare thee well, my friends, until we meet again in the spirit. Thank you for watching. Thank you.